Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the In the Paint Show, episode 152. I'm here with my guy, Ronnie Umana, straight out of Texas. I'm in LA right now. Big week. A lot of things going on in the sporting world. Obviously, Ronnie, we're going to talk a little bit about some football. We'll talk about the NBA. We're going to talk about, obviously, grassroots basketball and the upcoming things involved in basketball. Obviously, where this high school season is coming to a close. Yeah. Pretty quickly. We're heading toward the playoffs. Are you kind of excited about the playoffs? Ready to move on and start getting these elimination games going on? Where you feel about that right now? We're heading towards February and it's coming up.
Yeah, I'm really excited about like playoff basketball because then I can start seeing some of the Houston teams that come in here, those regional and area playoff games. And
for sure,
I got to see mostly everybody in Dallas. So I'm ready for the playoffs and more competitive games. And, like, hey, Trey, who you playing? And it's like a team they beat by 40. Now, like when you get to playoffs, you see these high-level guys play high-level games. So
that's great. And it makes sense. You want to see high-level guys in high-level games, and it's like, for you guys, it's after the district tournaments, it's like single elimination, so it's great, and people start getting ready for the grassroots. For us in California, this open division is people don't understand it completely. Like, wait a minute, I thought that team lost. I'm like, no, that's the sectionals. They're going to come back for the regional. But a lot of things have happened in the last week. A lot of streaks have ended. It's interesting seeing Sierra Canyon and Bishop Gorman out of the Fab 50 right now. It's just the way it happens. Obviously, it's based on results, not how good they could be on paper.
Right.
What they're doing. It's just the records they have. Bishop Gorman falls to Liberty in Nevada in a game. Then Liberty comes to California, and Corona Centennial handles them easily. So Gorman falls out, even though they got the win over San Ysidro and Sierra Canyon. They haven't really been healthy. And they're going to be in this Mission League tournament. Mission League includes Notre Dame with Caleb Foster and Dustin Stromer. And then, they played last Friday at UCLA. And 7,500 people there. But, again, Ronnie wasn't playing. Isaiah Ehalim is a little banged up.
Right.
They're not going to be playing this week. So they lost that game and they fell out. The number one seed is Harvard Westlake. Harvard Westlake beat the De La Salle team that beat Westland, that handed Westland their only loss. So, that league is good, with Harvard Westlake, the number one seed, Notre Dame, the 2 seed, and Sierra Canyon, 3. So Notre Dame and Sierra Canyon is most likely meet in Wednesday, the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
The 1 and 2 seed got a double bye to the semifinals. So Sierra Canyon just has to win on Tuesday night as we film.
They get a double bye?
Yeah, to the Mission League tournament. It's just a league tournament. There's only 3 good teams. Yeah, so I know you're like, whoa, double bye. Yeah. So the top 2 seeds get a double bye. So Sierra Canyon plays tonight. Again, are they going to win without Ronnie and Ehalim? They're probably going to be out of the open. So I went to a game last week. I got to saw some of the top freshmen in California. Our guy Brandon Martinson and Brandon McCoy Jr., who's now at St. John Bosco. And St. John Bosco beat Mater Dei. And this is a crazy streak, Ani. Like we talk about the streak of Fab 50, Sierra Cannon's been in the Fab 50 every year since 2017. Bishop Gorman's been in every year since 2015. So it'll be interesting to see how they close the season. But Mater Dei had won their league 34 straight years. 34 straight years, bro. That's a long time. 1988 is the last time they didn't win league. Mater Dei. I mean, just think of all the injuries that could happen, transfers, bad luck. They've won the league or tied the league 34 straight years. And that's not
presidents that they played through, that they went through. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
How many? What did they what?
Presidents that they went through,
Yeah. Wow. 1988, Ronald Reagan was getting out of office.
Right.
So then George Bush, Clinton, it takes, obviously they've had great players, but it takes an element of luck and non-injuries at the wrong time. All that mattered,
Right.
Man, that's just kudos to Mater Dei. Even though they're not going to be the league champions this year, looks like St. John Bosco is. They knocked them out last Tuesday, I believe, or Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
They came back and beat them at home. So Matt Dunn's team has beat Mater Dei 5 straight years at home. But they had a big lead, Mater Dei, and they kind of gave it up. But with 4, at that time there was, after that loss, Mater Dei had 4 losses. There were 3 league games to go, so they were mathematically eliminated. But kudos to them. They're not in the Fab 50 right now, but it's just the thing I think about mostly is Stanley Johnson's senior year. They lost the starter right like in November. They lost the starter. I was like, there's no way this team's going to win their 4th straight state title. And they did it, 35-0. So like you said, it just takes coaching, luck, players, and obviously an element of luck. So a lot of things have happened in high school basketball. What's the latest that you've heard out there, or like what team are you following, or what do you see out there that's like kind of interesting you as the playoffs come near?
I just think when you talk about 6A in Texas, that Beaumont United versus like Lake Highlands, they're just like destined to play each other in the state title, the game, So I mean, Beaumont United, they're in, I think they're 17 or 15 or 17 in our Fab 50, and then Lake Highlands, they stayed at 9. So I mean, in 6A, you got some teams that could kind of maybe get them in the first few rounds potentially. Like, we saw with Richardson last year, how we thought they were going to play Duncanville, but lost, like, I think in the 3rd round.
Sure.
But I think with 6A, I'm just interested to see if Beaumont United and Lake Highlands, if that
clash.
And then, what happens there. Because Beaumont United is rolling. Lake Highlands is really rolling. So,
wow.
I would say, like, in 6A, they're destined to meet each other.
Now, because of the regions 1, 2, 3, 4, we already know that they're going to be on opposite sides, or could they meet in the semis?
They could meet in the semis because when they get into the Final Four, it just depends on how they want to match that up. But more than likely, they would see each other in the championship. Okay. I would hope that they see each other in the championship. I don't because that semifinal game is the championship game.
And that's happened before. That's happened before, yes. Like where the semifinals of the championship. Yeah, because so they're in different regions, so they won't meet in a regional final. Great, no. That's the key thing. So they get downstate, they meet in the semifinal or maybe the final, as we hope. So yeah, like you mentioned, this is going to run through that. Not a lot of change in the Fab 50 at the top.
Right.
Lake Highlands with the losses to Duncanville, Centennial, which looks good now, and Paul VI, which rolled to still our number 1 team. They've been rolling in league. Paul VI won a couple big games last week, I should say. And then, like you said, Beaumont United checking in at 18-25-1 as the week starts. Only the loss to Houston, Washington. Anything goofy happened in that Houston, Washington game, or was that just a lot? They just took a loss
they just took a loss. Like Booker T just kind of came at them, and I think Beaumont didn't really take the game that serious.
Sure.
Just I think it was an early loss. I think it was like an early November loss.
Yeah.
And Beaumont just really didn't. I wouldn't say they had their stuff together. Obviously, they didn't with the loss, but they lost. It was just weird. Like they should not have lost that game.
Wow, it would just be interesting to see where they were if they wouldn't lost that game. I mean, I can't predict it because their schedule is a little different than some of the top teams, but they might be like 11. They might be right there with Lake Highlands. Lake Highlands season's turned out really, really good. I know we talked to our guy Trey Johnson in the preseason. He was really fired up, and they didn't get those early games that they won against Duncanville, Centennial, and Paul. But I mean, those 3 teams are really, really good. No. I mean, those are like national contender number 1 teams. So I mean, Lake Highlands, they and then with Duncanville out of it, it'll be interesting to see if Lake Highlands wins the state title, how high Duncanville gets. But that's down the line. And like you said, the top of the Fab 50, as we expect, those teams win. I mean, there's some change at the bottom. We have 4 new teams this week. I'll give a shout out to those 4 teams real quick. It's Brother Rice of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, checking in at 41. And we got Archbishop Stepanak with our guy Boogie Flan gets back in. They're now in front of Christ the King. They beat them in New York. And then North Mecklenburg, 19-1 down in North Carolina, and Dorman of South Carolina, who's only lost to Christ School of North Carolina and Roman Catholic, who's in the Fab 50. So shout out to those new teams again. And we're not really getting a big change at the top. Like I said, there's going to be some change when those matchups get tougher. But we got to talk about what happened in Long Island. Long Island Lutheran was playing Roselle after Roselle had beat Don Bosco Prep. Now, Don Bosco Prep, that was a 68-60 game during the week. Don Bosco Prep is one of the teams that beat Centennial, handed Centennial of California one of its 3 losses. And as you know, they got a high-level guy. So I guess our guy Simeon Wilcher, I'm sure he was, he didn't get picked for the McDonald's game. We talked about that with Horace and Chelsea last week. We kind of broke that down. We appreciate everybody tuning into that episode. We got a lot of people tune into that one, but I think he wanted to make a statement. They were down by like 7 points or so on, and then he scored like 11 straight points to get him the win. Simeon's doing well. We hope to see Simeon in some other All-Star games. What do you think about that? And then we'll talk about what happened against Lou High.
Yeah, I think definitely Wilcher, I talked about it. I thought he should have been a McDonald's All-American in the game. But, that's a good way to respond. Like, I like that he responded in that manner of, okay, I'm going to get 11 straight. I'm going to go after it. I'm not going to let it bother me, but just fuel himself. And we talked about that on the show. Just,
no doubt.
Letting a player use this as fuel. And he's a talented guard, can get downhill, can score. Yeah. He's doing a good job with Roselle this season. And, I'm just happy he responded in that way in a big game.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And again, we talked about Caleb Foster. He has that big game coming up, maybe against Sierra Canyon. He didn't make it. A few other guys, Jackson Shelstad. We didn't talk too much about Jackson.
We did
it. Jackson is rolling. That team is rolling. They're doing good. They're a top 25 team in the country. Those are the three guys that most people would stand out to most people, off the top. So then on Sunday, they come back and Roselle plays. Again, Roselle gets the big win against Don Bosco. They're playing Lou High. And then in the second quarter, unfortunately, Tarik Watson, who's one of the better junior forwards in the country, he just passed out, collapsed. And a couple people we know were there, a couple scouts. It's a big game. It was packed. It was at Long Island. And the crowd just went eerily silent, Ani, just like completely silent. And the young man lost consciousness, and the teams were told to go to their locker room. It was a really eerie scene. Tarik's brother was there, who's a well-known player. He was kind of like, whoa, ran out of the gym. It just hurt him too much to see what was going on. But I guess he regained consciousness and kind of gave the thumbs up sign, to the fans. And Lou High's coach, John Buck, kind of told the crowd, like, let's pray for him. So they prayed for him right there on the spot, and then the paramedics came. So I guess they called 911 right away, Ani, and then they took him on the stretcher. And we got an update from our coach Bob from Roselle, and he was saying that, and he told me yesterday as I put out the Fab 50 that, he's doing okay. The tests have come back positive. He's just doing okay, and they're waiting for running more tests and just kind of waiting to, but everything is okay right now as we, this is on a Tuesday as we're doing this pod, but man, Ani, that's scary. And you just hope everything's okay, and forget basketball. You just hope everything's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, stuff like that's scary, it's just, and I feel like we're seeing it a little bit. We're seeing it more and more, and it just cringe. It just makes me cringe every time I see like a player just collapse, especially a young man, a junior. And then, I was reading an article where I guess this happened a couple months ago in New Jersey as well.
Yeah,
where they had to get the defibrillator. So I'm just thank God that the young man's good. He regained consciousness. He's okay. Because these things that you've seen, Ronnie, we've seen that it could have gone a lot worse.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Again, shout out to send a prayer to Roselle Catholic and their team. Obviously, the game was called. So that was, the game got called. It's like a no contest. The game was called. Right. So Roselle goes now in front of Don Bosco. Roselle's 21 and Don Bosco's 22 in the Fab 50. Roselle's another team that's lost to Duncanville. They lost to Sunrise.
Right.
Gonzaga and Paul VI, our number one team. So, yeah, but they're just going to try to regroup and hopefully get good news about Tarik. Akil's his brother, Akil Watson. So, he was a little shaken up, and rightfully so. And man, you just hope that the young man is okay long term, and that
right.
But I know it's something, Ani, where we don't know. There's a lot of things we could talk about. We could talk about the thing in Memphis with the police. We can talk about these kids, and it's just like when these episodes happen, one thing we know is like life moves on. Life moves forward, and like you have to be kind of hope for the best, even though there's some wicked things out there. But yeah, do you think, Ani, in your opinion, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, not in a bad way, that we're just the media is focusing and hearing that more? We're hearing more about that often, or do we really think that like this is happening more often?
I think that's an interesting question. I think that they focus. There is more of a focus on it.
Yeah.
Do I think it's happening more? To some degree, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
To some degree, yes. But I also feel like these things have been happening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, correct.
No doubt. Have been happening. Now, with social media and how big it is to this day, it can get, I want to say, just like, because it's serious, but like it can be made like a really, really big deal, where I feel like stuff like this was going on in the 80s, 90s. Like when you go back and you read like news articles and old newspapers and stuff, like
stuff was happening.
Stuff was happening, you know, like in the local news. Like, so, and so I do feel like this has been going on, but you know, how I feel like it's kind of going on a little bit more.
Yeah.
But but it has been going on for a long time.
Okay. Yeah, and hopefully maybe we'll get my guy Mark Tennis, who's of Cal High, who's been a guest before. He's been covering like the newspaper scene, and we've had a newsletter with Cal High for over, you know, for 40 years now, since 1979. So he's seen a lot of like football injuries or kids collapsing. He's heard about it. Maybe we'll get his take on it here toward the playoffs, and just kind of his experience, because like you said, it's happened. Is it happening more? I don't know. We don't have the statistics in front of us, but it's happening, and we're seeing it. And again, what the media focuses on is very important as well, or how they present it.
And I also don't like how
times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I the only thing I don't like is that when something like this happens, then the focus isn't on the kid being okay or whatever. The focus on some other stuff, some political agenda stuff, you know, things. Then I'm like, okay, like
the vaccine or anything else.
Right. And it's like, okay, the kid lost consciousness. We didn't there's a point we didn't know the kid was going to get back up. Let's focus on that.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. It's scary, man. I mean, again, like I've said before on previous pods with you and Chelsea, like the thing around the time of hang gathers, people were scared for like a few months, like just because it's in your mind. And I think that's where we are a little bit, you know, talking to our guy, Andrew Slater, a national scout. He was kind of like, man, it was just got really quiet, and it's just freaky. Like, you know, something you don't see. It's just eerie, and you just hope for the best. But when everybody gets quiet like that, you know, it's serious, you know, and it's just, and, you know, those are two great teams, two nationally ranked teams. You hate to see that. And, you know, you feel for Akil Watson too, you know, his brother, and he's there, and that's got to be a scary scene. So, you know, again, we appreciate Coach Boff always responding to us and me and my texts, and I'm always asking him about his games and stuff. So, you know, to him respond to this about what happened is, you know, class guy. Coach Buck at Lou High is a class guy as well. So, you know, I'm glad that those guys were there together, and people were supporting Tarik. So moving on, Ani, obviously we, you know, like I said, we could talk about a lot of things. You know, we're not even going to tackle the thing in Memphis right now. It's just so much going on. But on a more lighter note, you know, the NBA All-Star starters are named, and the East, is that Giannis's team this year?
Yeah, that's Giannis.
Yeah, Giannis is kind of like the captain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our girl Chelsea thinks he's still the best player in the league, but we'll get her take next week on the Lakers and all the drama that's happening with their no calls and or where they're at in the playoff race and things like that. And the NBA All-Star game's coming up pretty fast, but I'll go ahead and read the East, and you can just let us know who's on the West. So it's Giannis, Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, comes over from Utah. He's having a really good season. Kevin Durant, Brooklyn Nets, and Jason Tatum, Boston Celtics. Now, the head coach is Joe Mazzulla, who took over the Celtics staff. So, you know, pretty awesome for a quote-unquote interim coach. I don't know if he's even considered an interim coach anymore.
Right.
He's not. I don't mean he's doing a good job. But, Ani, all these 50, as you pull up that West team, all these 50-point game and 60-point games? Is it just, hey, these guys are skilled, or you kind of think like, okay, guys, let's start playing a little more defense second half of the season, you know? Or where are you kind of at on that?
Man, I hope they start playing some more defense. You know, towards the end. I mean, these guys are really good, but I mean, it's like game 60, Luka 53 last night. I'm like, okay, they're not going to get. I hope to see some more defense. Obviously, in the All-Star game, someone's going to get like 80 points or so. But, I hope to see more defense past the trade deadline, going into the playoffs. Like teams actually trying to rev up, get ready for the playoffs. Like I want to see more like physical battles. You know, maybe that's just a kind of the old school way of me. But like, guys are good, but let's see some defense.
Let's see some defense. So so what's up with the West team? I know Team LeBron. It's Team LeBron. Who's on that lineup?
Yeah, so you got Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
You got LeBron James as the captain. You got Steph Curry. You got Luka Doncic. And for the first time, you got Zion Williamson.
Wow. So Zion's starting, but is that through the fans and the players and the media, right?
Yeah, that's through fans and media.
People love Zion. I mean, Zion, wow.
I know.
I mean, he's a popular guy, but Zion. We'll see how he does. I'm sure he's gonna. He's a generational type talent. I don't know if he's had the generational type career yet. He's got to stay healthy, but
right.
I mean, we'll see where Zion goes from here. But there's no doubt he's one of the 10 or 15 most talented players in the league. He's one of the most talented players probably ever to play the sport. Really.
Right. There's no one that's built like him, and
the fans love him, right? I mean, and it's crazy. He's like in New Orleans. I don't even really hear people talking about the Pelicans that much, and he's been out, but it's like people still want to see him,
Right.
The fans should see him. If that's who they want to see, then we should see him. You know what I mean?
I agree. And then you kind of look at who could take his spot. I mean, maybe Paul George, Kawhi Leonard hasn't really played. Like Lauri Markkanen. Do we really? I mean, I think Lauri Markkanen's had a great season, but do we really want to see him in the starting lineup of the NBA All-Star game? No. Like, I get why Zion's in there.
Yeah, no doubt. And as we'll follow that game's in Utah, Salt Lake City this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go to a Utah game against the Bulls this season. Beautiful scenery. I like that city. I don't know much about it. Maybe I wish I knew a little bit more. I'm not really a snowbird, man. I'm ready to get out of there.
Well, don't come to Dallas right now. All it is snowing right now.
Wow. So, again, we got more things coming up. We got the playoffs. We got the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about. We'll probably break that down in one of the upcoming episodes. I know we're looking forward to that, especially that the first week is always crazy. But on a different note, young kids, especially middle school or younger prospects, they kind of got to start thinking of their travel team, their plans.
Mm-hmm.
What advice, Ani, would you give for a kid who's kind of trying to make his summer plans? Obviously the EYBL and those things are starting to get announced. Dates for Pangos camp, dates for NBA players, that kind of thing. But what's the first couple things that a young player should do as they kind of prep for the spring and the summer?
Well, I think just getting, just making sure your skill set and your game and your conditioning, like your overall self is right before you get into the spring and the summer when you talk about playing 4 or 5 games in a day. Like, we see 7-game weekends and stuff like that. I would say number one. Number two, I think just definitely talk about picking a team, I think is doing your research. Doing your research on these guys, understanding who you are as a basketball player and what may fit you, what coach, what program, what culture fits you best. And I think you got to do your research. A lot of times we see guys chase a shoe circuit team, and then that now you're on a team that has 12 guys, right? you're playing 5 minutes, and you got 3 and 4 star guys on the bench. So I definitely think it's doing your research. Always, I'm a fan of guys trying out. These tryout fees kind of be a little expensive sometimes, but
financial aspect's important too. You got to know what to hit and how much you're going to spend. Kind of help get with your parents and budget it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Financial part, it always sounds cute to travel, but like in California, Ronnie, and here in Dallas, you don't have to go all over the country to get seen by a coach or whatever. So I think just doing your research and understanding what you want to get out of it and what's realistic, what you want to get out of it.
Correct. And then you gotta, for the more elite players, they kind of figure out what live periods they gotta go to. Obviously they're gonna hit the live events, and then what dead period events they're gonna play in. They're not obviously gonna play in all of them, but they're gonna play in some of them. And then what individual things they can do away from their travel team. Obviously, Made Hoops is out there. We got Hoop Group, Pangos Fresh Soft Camps, the Junior All-American camps coming up, which is always a good event. Our guy Dinos does a Junior All-American camp in California. That's always a good leeway for the younger guys to get in there. And then we got, so just a bunch. We got a bunch. We got John Lucas's camps, Get Right camp.
BLE camp, Get Right camp. Yep.
Yeah, he's had those quite a few stops. And again, if you got to find out where they are. So we actually have a special guest this week. It's actually John Lucas III. He's played in the NBA 10 years. Obviously, John Lucas's son, and John Lucas is the kind of like the director of the NBA Players Top 100 camp, and he has his staff, and our guy Horace is involved in that. Our guy Jimmy Hicks is involved in that. It's a national group. Frank Burleson's involved in that, so that's very important for the elite guys. And obviously, his son has been on coaching in the NBA. He trains high-level players, and he also trains up and coming players, all the way from the middle school ranks to NBA type players. So we got a chance to talk to him. So what would you say just about, I know you've been to some of Lucas's camps. I have too. In the Southwest, I've been to one in Arizona. I've been to one in Vegas. Talk a little bit about John Lucas's camps.
It's definitely different than the typical camps because they really make you work. If it's like combine test, if it's testing, or it's just a lot of conditioning and a lot of fundamental work early. And then they get to the games. But when you play them games, you're going to be tired. Like before you get to the games, you're going to be exhausted. And that's Lucas trying to test you mentally and see if you can push through it and play after you just had like a few hours, a long workout. So that's what I like about it. It really is testing the players in multiple ways. And then it's not just about rolling the ball and playing. It's about really teaching and, testing, how good a player really is.
Correct. Yeah, and John has his staff, and he's had many of them for a long time, and he'll be quick to stop a camp game and just blow the whistle and say, "Hey, you guys need to pick it up." Or he's really big on that, trying to play the right way. So yeah, we actually had a chance to like I said, we brought on John Lucas III, and we actually had a chance to talk to him in an extensive interview. He gave us a lot of insight on his camp he has coming up in LA on March 18th and 19th, and then just about like his background. And his background in the camps and coaching and training. So let's go to the interview now with our special guest. And now we bring on our guest on the In the Paint show, John Lucas III, former NBA player, current coach, mentor, and trainer. A lot of kids from a lot of various ages and skill levels. He's going to give us a little insight on his camps and what he knows about the game at the pro level. Coach Lucas, appreciate you jumping on.
Man, thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you definitely time of the year where kids start thinking about, their choices in the spring and summer for grassroots travel ball, which camps they go to. There's a lot of things out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But just, John, tell us a little bit about your plans for your Get Right, the JL3 Way for your camps. Do you have, multiple stops planned? Tell us a little bit about possible dates and locations for those camps and what they're all about.
Yeah, man, I'm very excited about it. Camp's March 18th and 19th coming up. It's a 2-day event. It's my way of just giving back to the game, the knowledge of the game that I have, throughout the years of playing in the league, playing in college, playing on the highest level in basketball, AAU, et cetera, just trying to give these kids and these parents, the right structure and the direction of how to navigate their way through this game of basketball. I had to do it, being a former basketball player's son, and he's still coaching, and him raising two kids that have been very successful in basketball. My little brother's an assistant coach at Duke University. He was at Kentucky and at University of Texas, also a McDonald's All-American and Jordan brand.
Sure.
So, just navigating and knowing the do's and the don'ts. And it's just my way of giving these kids the proper tools to succeed in whatever goal they want. I'm not saying they're going to be pros coming to my camp. I'm not saying none of that, but I can at least give them the right structure for them to take back to wherever they come from and work on their game and start putting together a foundation to achieve their goals they want to achieve.
Absolutely. Coach, with the spring and summer is like camps, clinics, grassroots events. And obviously your father's events have always been a one that players had to go to, right? It played an integral part in everything. Are your camps more of an extension of his, or are you going to have your own twist on it?
It's a little bit of both. I'm gonna have my own twist to it too. But yes, absolutely. We're real big on fundamentally sound, and I use this analogy all the time. If you see how houses are built, they're built from the ground up. You can't build a house from top to bottom. Then you're gonna have breaks and functions all through your foundation. You got to start at the basics, and I go around all these AAU tournaments, and I have my own AAU program myself, JL3 Elite, and I'm seeing all these kids that's trying to do all these moves, but they can't even make a proper jump stop or know the right pivot or doing this. And when you keep going in this game, that's going to catch you. And then everybody's looking around like, man, this kid was so good back in. But now when you get into a college setting where the coach is being adamant about what it is that he wants and what it is in this and being fundamentally sound to play. Like a lot of kids can't play in a structure. A lot of kids don't know how to adjust their games into fitting into whatever team they're going to, because it's been so much like throw the ball out and let's just play.
Right.
One thing about me is I was so fundamentally sound. I was able to pan out 10 years in the NBA just because I knew how to play. I knew how to make adjustments. I knew where to be at the court at all times when I didn't have the ball in my hand. A lot of kids don't know where to be on the court when they don't have the ball in their hand. So then they get lost, they get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
Because you have kids who do know, and then now all of a sudden you're not playing. You're out of college. Now you're transferring. You're going to this school, going to that school. You're leaving this because it's the coach's fault or they don't know your game. No, it's not it. You have cracks in your foundation and you miss some steps along the way. But it's not too late to correct it. You just have to get with the proper coaches and the proper, player development coaches who can kind of patch those foundations that's been cracked that maybe somebody in a miss or maybe somebody skipped a step over.
Sure. One in the camp in September, I remember going to in Houston, and those were some of the things you were talking about, like the players not being able to play without the ball in their hands. I remember you just emphasizing to these guys, like, repping the simple things, right? the fundamentals. And I remember that really stuck to me. And I hope a couple of the players at least heard that and really took that in. But so that is something I agree. Like every camp that I go to, especially with your father, it's like that's something you always preach, even the NBA Top 100 camp. Even you tell it to those guys too. So, absolutely.
Yeah, it's I love this game of basketball. I didn't dedicated my whole entire life to it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was 4 years old. And for me, it's like I just want to give back. I'm seeing our basketball decline and everybody else's basketball's rising. Right? I had the chance to play overseas. I see the structure. I have seen why Luka Doncic is being Luka Doncic. I have seen why the European players are coming into the game because they've been structured. Right. They know the game. And then you start adding, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Like I have kids that I train, they be like, come in the gym right away. They don't even do form shooting. They go right to shooting threes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they was like, Steph Curry. They're yelling these names. I'm like, yo, Steph started in here first, and then he moved back. Like, you got to get this down first before you can't jump to there.
Right.
You have to start here, form shooting, go through your routine. What is your structure? Like mine was rub my rib, LI, finish high. I used to repeat that every time my whole career before I even start taking a midi or 3. I always did at least 20 a spot form shooting just to reprogram myself, get myself ready for what was about to be the task at hand. I didn't come into the gym shooting threes right away. Right. Yeah, so my thing was, you got to take the steps and you got to stay fundamentally sound. Like I'm always saying, like that's the biggest thing to me is being fundamentally sound. Like you can look at who's the greatest boxer of all time in our generation. I'm asking you.
Floyd.
And what does he do? Is he a knockout artist?
No.
Right? He's a skilled boxer.
Right.
He's basically brought Olympic boxing to professional boxing, right? He's gonna beat you with points. He's a counterpunch. He's not a knockout artist. Every mistake you make, he has something for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's so sound. Like when you watch the 24/7 boxing thing, he does the same thing. It's no gimmick. It's nothing new. It's the same structure, and he's gonna go in there and win every match.
Right.
Fundamentally sound, and like in the dedication of putting the work in. Is it boring?
Could
but
be.
It works. It could be, but he's 50-0. He hasn't been beaten. So we was always taught as kids, you don't change if something works, you don't change it.
Right. Sure. Coach, let's take it back. You talk about the foundation. You talk about getting those fundamentals and playing the game the right way. You played in a great era of ball, high school ball. Speaking of Bel Air High School in Texas, 2001 playoffs. I know you don't want to think about it all the time, but you guys, followed that Willow Ridge team. They were 39-0, finished number 2 in the country. Talk about that time and what you felt your development was. Obviously, you know more about, you don't know till when you're 15 and 16, you think you know everything. Talk a little bit about what you knew about and where your development was. Where did you think you were going? You obviously knew what you wanted to do since you were 4 years old, but where were you at that time?
I just love the game. So what I played tennis. So I didn't play basketball in the summer.
Okay.
So I was top 50 in the country in tennis, top 8 in the state of Texas. So when everybody else was playing basketball, I was playing tennis. So I only played basketball 3.5, 4 months out the year, but I trained all year round in basketball.
Sure.
So us growing up, where for me it was different from my little brother. My dad, we didn't know about AAU basketball like that. Like it was like high school, and then I played tennis. And then tennis, we nationals, Kalamazoo. I was traveling for that. Like my dad really was trying to wing me that way because I would just picked it up so quick. But my heart was in basketball. So playing against my best friends, TJ Ford, Daniel Ewan, Carlos Hurd. Yeah. We had a lot of hoopers out of Houston. Then my high school teammate was Emeka Okafor. And then my other high school teammate before he transferred was Lawrence Roberts, who ended up going to Baylor. We ended up going to Baylor together. So the Houston scene in basketball was crazy. So my name was big in Houston, but it wasn't as big as those guys because they played all year.
Right. Sure.
But I led the whole state in scoring, averaged 30 points, 11 assists a game, and I logged over 3,400 points in my high school career.
Wow.
But nobody really knows all that because I wasn't even like showcase it. Like even today, like they came out with the UIL top 100 and my name wasn't even on the list.
So, Ronnie, what do you think about that, man? Was that a shaft? Was that a snub?
Man, that's people not doing their research.
Yeah. Like you said, some guys get anointed or they get a name and it's hard to get, they keep it.
Right.
So my thing is I use all that as fuel all through high school.
Sure.
It was more like when I was getting my accolades, it was more like, oh, well, he got it because, that's Coach Lucas's son. And, his dad, John Lucas, and this and that. Sure. But my mind, I was like, man, my dad ain't giving your son 30 points a game. My dad ain't dropping 11 to 6. Like my whole thing was like, I'm gonna seek and destroy because I guess I gotta make a name for myself.
Right.
So, growing up, my dad told me, your name's a gift and a curse. Yeah. And he was like, protect your name. So I used to always hear parents like, yo, who you playing against today? You playing against John Lucas' son. Like we go in there and do our thing. We can make a name for ourselves. And I used to hear, my teammates would come back and tell me, and I just be like, I'm gonna show them why I am who I am. Like I'm gonna destroy your son, and you're not gonna make a name out. Like that was my and I wasn't like I was loud with it. Like every time I scored, I let you know I scored. Like, and my dad hated it. He was like, keep the game simple. Stop bringing that into the game. I was like, but that was my edge.
Right.
So it was my way of kind of separating myself from, my dad was like very professional, do everything right. If you wear this pair of socks, your first game you ever play, you better wear the same style don't switch. Like,
he was very
rigid. Yes. So that's how I grew up. So if I wanted to be like Kerry Kittles and have one high sock and one low sock, my dad would pull me off the court and be like, what are you doing? You're not focused. You ain't ready to play. Like that and make me
that
switch
makes a lot
back
of sense.
And make me switch back to my original whatever it was.
Sure.
And I just took that with me throughout my whole career.
Gotcha.
And like you said, Coach, the game that you played in a playoff game with 5 future NBA players. You know, looking at it now, like developmental. Did you know it was a special time then, right in the moment? Or did you come back later because you realized how difficult it is to stick in the league, how difficult it is to make it? You know, did you know that as a 17-year-old guy, or did you figure that out later? Like, wow, that you know, we're pretty lucky what we were able to experience.
I kind of knew that at a young age. You know, I,
Okay.
I give a lot of credit to my dad. He never hid anything from me. He always kept it a buck with me, always kept it 100 with me. Even throughout the whole draft process, even the high school things, he always had me thinking ahead. So we was all, we was always playing chess, not checkers, and he was always giving me 3 steps ahead of whatever it is I was about to embark on or going to. For the high school time were the recruiting for me. You know, I was getting recruited by everybody for tennis and basketball. And it came to the point was like, you know, you can go to a Kansas, you can go to a Kentucky, but are you going to play? And it was like, if you go there, you know, they're going to have to get the number 1 player out their state. It's just like, we was thinking like that. Like, okay, you go to an out-of-state school, you just know that it's a possibility whoever the top dog is in that state, they will be at that school.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and you will have to fight for your position. And I was like, you know, we fight all day. So, like, I wasn't scared of the competition, but it was also seeing, well, you know, who wants a scoring point guard? Because I wasn't a traditional point guard.
Right.
I like to score. I like to put the ball in the hole. I wasn't a pass first like my best friend TJ Ford was. So we was 2 different players. Like I was a score first, and then I'm a pass. He was more pass than score. Right. So I had to go to a school that was going to let me be me and not change who I was. Because then, if that's the case, I'm not playing my game, and then I'm at the end of the bench or I'm transferring to another school. And then again, another process was I didn't want to sign early because I knew if I signed early, none of these other schools would come to our games anymore. And then none of my teammates was going to get seen who was on the border. And I talked Emeka Okafor into not signing early to Georgia Tech, which I still catch hell from Coach Hewitt that I see all the time in LA because he's part of the Clippers organization.
Sure.
I talked Emeka and not signing early to Georgia Tech and to wait until later where he ends up going to UConn. And that was the way of us to like, because we had Brandon Lepo, we had Jared Williams, Jared Shorten, and a couple like Brent Archie. We had a lot of our teammates who was hoping to get scholarships too. And if we was assigned early, usually nobody else is coming to our games because, you know, your recruitment's done. So we actually waited to sign so we could help a lot of our teammates out, and all of them end up getting scholarships to universities to fulfill, you know, to keep playing basketball.
Sure. That's great. Go ahead, Ani.
You know, with TJ, Daniel Hewing, Bracy White, and Darren Williams at the Colony, whom at the time did you feel was the best player?
Ooh, out of Houston or just out of state?
Out of the state. Yeah.
You know, I get this question all the time, man. So it's like if Carlos Hurt never left the state to go play in Louisville, he would be 1. But since he's left, I would have to go with TJ that year. D. Will was a monster. You know, all those names you named was, you know, is neck and neck.
Right.
But you know, they're from Dallas. I'm from Houston, so you know, I'm always going to rep my city. So I got to go with TJ.
I figured you're gonna say TJ. I was going, you know, that was before me, but everyone I talked to really did say TJ too. So like,
yeah, TJ was a bad boy, man. But it was also a player that left our senior year to go to Louisville. Ended up playing at University of Louisville named Carlos Hurt, who won the LSIC with Rashad Lewis, left-handed. He was the one I've seen firsthand come down half court and pull like Steph be doing in the games in high school. He was a bad boy too. And then you had Dante Stiggers, who was cold, who went to Hastings. You had Corey Smith, went to Lamar with Lawrence Roberts. Like that class of 01.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that a lot of people might not know of, but have the respect, like Jermaine Hawkins that went to Westfield. Cold. left-handed. Like I just remember all the. Now you got me reminiscing.
You're thinking about the names, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you had two kids at Wheatley, Pop and Man. Like I was a student of the game, and I used to always, if I didn't have a game, I was always at a high school game watching.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Chris Bosh kind of told me, from a national perspective, obviously I wasn't in Houston or Dallas at the time, but like that team put them on the map, put the whole state on the map, really. The Ewing and TJ4 team. And one time Chris Bosh told me, that gave us confidence the next year that we thought we could be the best team in the country. So, shout out to that Willow Ridge team. That really helped put Texas basketball on the national. Like, hey, they're playing for a national championship type level ball.
Absolutely. Man, so for 3 years in a row. See, people don't realize that one year was taken away because they was really undefeated.
Okay.
Yeah. They won state 3 years in a row, but the one state championship was taken away from them.
Yeah.
Because somebody was living across the street and it was like some zonal code, and the UIL ended up saying they had to forfeit all the games they won, and the state championship was taken from them. So it was really 3 years in a row where people were and they did put us on the map because they probably was the first team from Texas to go up east and playing those big tournaments in Delaware and New York and come back, holding it down.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about development, staying in the pro game, being involved in the program. You obviously played for 6 different NBA teams. You played overseas for many clubs. Give us 2 keys. What are important keys to carve out a lasting career? If you're not like a max contract type of guy, or you have to be ready to move at any moment, what are 2 keys that maybe a younger player might need to know that wouldn't know, to try to last in this game? Because like you said, it's one thing to make it. It's one thing to last.
Be the ultimate pro.
Okay, great.
Be the ultimate pro. Being undrafted, and panning out and lasting a little bit longer than everybody who was in my draft class. I lasted a little bit longer than most of them. Yeah. My thing was I was gonna will my way into being an NBA player. Like I have a list of my goals I did when I was younger, and I said I want to play 10 years in the NBA, and I wrote that down when I was like 13 years old.
Wow.
And my thing was be at practice, first one in the gym, last one to leave. Stay with your routine. Practice to me was games. So my intensity in practice was like my intensity was if I was to play a game, like in the game. So I didn't know what walkthrough was. My walkthrough was game time because I might not play in the game.
Right.
And that might be my only opportunity to have a little bit of competition, to compete a little bit. Like when we was doing shell drills or, transition drills, and we're running through, offense, defense. My thing was like to push whoever was ahead of me, to make that person better. And for example was Chicago Bulls. Thibodeau, who was my coach with the Rockets, Chicago and Minnesota my last year playing basketball, wanted me on the team, but then the organization wanted to go a different route. And they couldn't see what I brought to the table, but everybody else could.
Mm-hmm.
So the person, when they was trying to make a decision, and a lot of people don't know this, a person who may make a decision, Derrick Rose spoke on my behalf. Derrick Rose went up to Gar Forman and John Paxson and was like, he's not going nowhere because he's the only one who picks me up full court and pushes me, and I get better every time I'm going against him.
Wow. Yeah. So you're saying if you're, like you said, not a max contract guy, you find your value and be a professional and find value on the team, like you said, even when you're not playing per se 15 minutes a game or 20 minutes a game.
And then the second thing is stay ready. Stay ready. I always stay ready. So it could be, I used the 2010, 2011, 2012 with the Bulls, and we was the one team, and we had the injuries and stuff like that. And I didn't get discouraged. I wasn't playing. I didn't. It's like every day I practiced. Every night at 9 p.m., everybody knew I was coming back to the gym to get my 1,500 makes in. I'm getting in the morning. I stayed routine. So, when the injury started to happen on our team and I had to step up, I was ready. I was always locked in the game. I sat next to the coaches. I didn't sit at the end of the bench. I sat next to the coaches, hearing the schemes, what plays coming next, what they want to do. Like I was really a sponge. So when it was when my number was called, I was ready.
Right.
And a lot of kids these days, because I've coached in the NBA now, and I'm seeing, oh man, I should be playing, and they get discouraged, and then they stop coming to the gym, working on their game. They just showing up because they mad about this, or they should be getting this or that. And then when they number call, they look trash out there because they ain't ready.
Sure.
And then now you find yourself in the G League. Now you find yourself out the league overseas. And then the hardest thing that these kids don't realize is getting back in.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Getting back in. Like you could be in for 1 or 2 years and then you out. And then now you look up, it's 5-6 years and you still trying to fight to get back in. And the thing for me is like, I've been at all of those levels. So when I have the young guys come in, I'm trying to drop as much knowledge and give them the blueprint so they ain't got to make the mistakes. Like, I'm going to let you know what's going to happen. Like, the game ain't changed. Right. Like, if you don't perform, you're out of here.
Yeah.
As somebody else, the biggest thing with a young guy or a veteran or anybody know, when a team brings in free agents to work out in the middle of the season, somebody's getting cut. you know you about to be replaced. It might not you, but somebody's about
somebody gonna get cut.
So, Coach, speaking of training, you talk about training high level players or up and coming kids. What are 2 keys you would say to maximizing a workout, regardless of your skill level? What are the 2 keys to maximizing a workout? Again, we're talking about the training aspect.
Always train like it's the game. Always train like it's the game. I'm not a big person of like taking time off. As athletes, we can't let our bodies relax. When we let our bodies relax, we always try to come back like, okay, we good. That's when the injuries start happening. You should never take, like my dad told me, I never missed a game for injuries. I never had any surgeries, nothing. And I train year round.
Wow.
Like now you got guys that don't train for 2 months after the season over with, and then they try to ram up before training camp starts. And now you get the little bitty knick-knack injuries like your groin, your hamstrings, because now your body's been in relaxed mode for 2 months.
Right.
It's been chill. And our bodies are made to be tight, ready to go all the time. Like you don't have to play ball all day, but it's still intensity stuff, sprinting, boxing, lifting weights, getting your shots up, your skill work. You don't have to play pick up basketball, but you got to do something. You can't just say cold turkey. And that's why I think a lot of players are making a mistake. And a lot of kids are doing the same thing now. And I feel like kids should be training 24/7 if you're trying to get to where you want to get to.
When you talk about like college and like college players, going into pro, what's the aspect of the game you've seen that they have the most difficulty in?
Just the speed of the game, college and speed. The college is a little bit slower.
Right.
They're running every single play to the T.
Right.
It's a 30-second shot clock. It's 24 in basketball and in the NBA. It's a defense of 3 seconds in the NBA. So in college, they can camp out in the paint. And you gotta know where that low man's at. Who's the low man? We're gonna pick on the low man. If you ain't the low man, you getting dunked on like I did because I was late. I gotta be there early. It's just like
sure.
That type of stuff is where a lot of college kids, when they first get into the league, they seem to struggle with, and also the length of the season. A lot of rookies hit that wall halfway through the season. Like you see them going real high in the beginning, and then all of a sudden, all-star break, you start seeing a dip. It's because the travel's a little bit different. You might have 4 or 5 games in 7 days. You play a game, get on the flight, land at 3 a.m, play another game. So
right.
And taking care of your bodies. A lot, when you come out of college, you're still eating Wendy's, Popeyes, stuff like that. But now as a professional, you got to fuel your body with the right proper nutrition to sustain that type of travel and the games and the minutes and, being on your feet a long time. You got to start watching what you eat and can't feel like, oh, I can get away with it because I'm 20 years old, 22 years old.
Right.
It's gonna catch you. So that was the biggest thing, is just the travel, the speed of the game, and the length of the season.
Gotcha. And coach, you talk about training is good. Don't give your body too much time off. Stay locked in. So as this high school season is going, people are going to start, getting revved up for camps and spring ball. So on March 18th and 19th in Torrance, tell us a little bit about your camp for middle school players, 6th to 8th grade. What can a young player expect to learn, and why will he or she be a better player after they leave your camp?
Because we're going to teach you the proper way to play this game and give you the knowledge to play this game of basketball and give you the structure, right? I didn't do high school. I want to do middle school. The reason why I want to do middle school, because might as well give them the keys now, because they're getting ramped up for high school. So when they get to high school, they understand what it is that they need to be doing. So it's not just a typical camp. I don't throw the ball out there and let's go play, let's have fun, and I want to see. No,
yeah,
we going to defensive drills, IQ tests, speed, agility, everything. 3-on-2, 2-on-1. I gotta see who can make the right decisions. I want to see everything, and we're gonna play. We're gonna play. But I like to run my camps where I want to see if these kids can know the game, and then what they don't know, they can take away and be like, you know what, I need to work on that.
Yeah.
Struggle with that. I struggle with that. And my whole thing is for these kids to live with the camp and be like, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
that's a humbling thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a humbling thing because all these kids think they're great. Every kid that comes to me and train, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. And then when I get them out there, I'm like, what? You can't even.
Oh, yeah. Especially here in LA, man. Kids think they're going to the league real fast.
And first thing they tell me, they want to show me their highlight tape. And I'm like, I don't want to see a highlight tape. I'd rather see
right.
Because a highlight tape is going to show me what you did.
Yeah, you did good. Right.
But in that game, you might have had 30 mistakes. But I'm not the 30 mistakes. All I'm seeing is your highlight. But my whole thing is I like going to these high school games because I get to see the highlight tapes when it comes on, Ballislife and Ball Dogs. Like I watch it all because I love the game. And I'm like, okay, I forget that kid. Man, I gotta go check him out. And then when I check him out, now that coaching come out of me, I start. Okay, man, like he couldn't see that play. Like you start seeing, start thinking. You see the flaws into the person's game.
Right.
No doubt.
And and my whole thing is like, I just want these kids. I want everybody to succeed. Like I want everybody to see. I think it's enough for everybody to achieve whatever they want to achieve. It's not like this person should be getting this. I feel like it's enough seats at the table for everybody.
Right.
That's my mentality. So for me, it's like I don't care who you train with. Right? Everybody's always like, as long as they teaching you the right way and you feel like you getting better, cool. But my thing is, I always tell the kids, like, I shouldn't be your only trainer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right? You should hear multiple voices. Like,
not a lot of people would take that approach. Right. That's a hell of an approach. I mean, it makes sense.
Because somebody might put a little bit something different in your game than I have. Right? Somebody might do this and do that. Right? My whole thing is like, I always want to be the one to put the last seasoning on top of the gumbo. Right. So growing up, my dad trained me, but it wasn't until I got to my senior year in high school. I had other trainers.
Right.
Oh, he was my dad.
Yeah.
Like that, he'll be like, okay, go get your shots up. Oh, do this. I'm like, man, the coach, man, he tripping. I should be like, go talk to him. Like, I'm dad. Like, I'm your dad right now. Like, I'm not your basketball. But when it was time for me to get ready, he was like, all right, now let me put my arms around you, and then I'm gonna finish the last part of whatever it is that we've been working on. Let me put the topping on. And I kind of do that with my kids. I'm like, look, you can go train with whoever you want to.
Sure.
As long as you're in the gym, I'm great.
Right.
Yeah.
right? And then if I see something like, okay, well, he told you that maybe that's a little bit wrong, like, then I'll be like, you need to do it like this or that. But it doesn't matter. I feel like everybody has a good heart that they also want to get the kids properly. Like you never, like my whole thing is I hate when I hear people like, oh, that's my kid. Like, that's my kid. Like I train him. We've been, if he doesn't have your last name, he's not your kid.
Kid facts.
Like, you know what I'm saying? That is just my.
There's enough space and there's enough room for everybody.
There's enough room for everybody, and I feel like everybody, can bring something different to the table. Like I never say because I've trained everybody, but I never say that's my kid because it's not. Because I know that kid goes to this person, that kid goes to that person, and this person. They come to me at certain time. I'm just one of the voices that he's getting to it.
Sure.
And that's what and it's hard because out in LA it's like everybody's a trainer. And everybody tries to
there's so many trainers in LA.
Put like a different spin on everything. And to me, the game has never changed. Right. I like some of my kids be like, man, you need to add this and you need to bring the cameras in to your workouts. And like, what we do in the dark will show up in the light.
Fact.
Like, why would I bring cameras and do all the extra stuff? Like we giving the sauce away. We giving the seasoning away. So when you plan to get these kids, they know exactly what's going to come. So my whole thing is like, I just do it out of heart of like, no, we just going to work. Like, we're not into all that. Like, we're going to work and we're going to let our work show. And when I say we, I'm saying it's you that's going to let the work show. Like, I don't do a lot of advertisement for my training because I use my kids to be my word of mouth.
Sure.
And my thing, when my kids go out there and do what they're supposed to do, and then the parents be like, well, who is he training with? Because he wasn't like that last year. And that is my formula of what it is. Like I don't chase after nobody.
Sure.
Everybody know where I'm at. I'm here. And when you want that real work, I'm here for it. And I just want players to be dedicated to the craft and know what it is to take and a sacrifice. A lot of these kids and parents don't understand it's a sacrifice that come with this game.
No doubt. Like
my kids be like, oh, coach, I'm gonna go to a football game on Friday. I'm like, but you don't play football.
Right.
They're just hanging out.
Just hanging out. But my whole thing is, okay, well, why don't you go to the football game at halftime and get your work in? Like, what is going to separate you? Because there's a kid out there right now that's doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I tell these kids that your childhood really, this is what you want to do, because every kid says, I want to go to the NBA, right?
Sure.
You heard it. I heard every kid. But they're not willing to do what it takes to get there. They're not willing to take that sacrifice to get there. Some kids are. And those kids that are doing that, those are kids that are ranked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Rankings don't really mean anything to me, but those are the kids that's in the gym putting that work in. And I have a group chat with all the kids that I train from third grade all the way up to college. They all in the same group chat. and I posted a Devin Booker clip. Because some of the kids was missing workouts to go to birthday parties and to hang out and stuff like that. Sure. I posted a clip of Devin Booker. He said, when I was in high school from Michigan, I would drive up and get my work in. So I miss prom. I miss going to the parties. I miss this. I miss that. He said, now I'll do it all over again. Because look where he's at now. He's one of the top players in the NBA.
Right.
Yeah.
He had a that. So and now, like I tell kids, like I miss a lot of stuff growing up. I can recreate that if I wanted to. If I want to recreate a party that I missed in high school, I can recreate that. You know why? I put the dedication and I got the funds to do it because of basketball.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I sacrifice stuff that a party happens every weekend.
No doubt.
Right? I sacrifice. Okay, I missed that party. Oh well. I know the DJ gonna play the same song. I know these people gonna do the same dances. Everybody gonna be there. But if I get my work in and I do my work, I can recreate that. If I want to go to prom with my wife again, I could recreate a prom. So my thing was, I had the blinders on. I knew what I needed to get to, and nothing was going to knock me off. Knock me off my pivot, and that's why I married my wife. Like, we've been together since high school. She saw me like this, and she didn't discourage me. Oh, can you come to this part? And I'll come, but I'm gonna be late.
Sure.
And like, cause I gotta go. I gotta put my work in. Like, cause that was the mentality I have. I'm outworking y'all. So when I see you on the court, I know I'm outworking you.
Right.
Because I know you wasn't in the gym. You was at that party. I know. I heard about
it. That's awesome. So, Coach, as we wrap up, tell us a little bit more about the sign-up info. Players, how can they get that working? Players and parents have more questions. Tell us a little more info about the camp, where they can sign up, or any other training opportunities you're involved with.
Yes. So you can sign up. It's a links in my bio of my Instagram, which is JL3 Basketball. Registrations just went out today. And we already have been getting calls, and it's filling up pretty fast. And we just put it out this morning at about 9:30 Pacific time. It's just how do I want to explain this? It's a different camp than all these other camps that you see that's going on today. I'm more running like an NBA combine.
Okay.
I want to see everything, your IQ, how you think the game, and it starts at a young age where you can instill this knowledge, right? Kids right now are sponges. High school kids are more like, I know what I'm doing there, but these middle school kids, I'm seeing it. Like, Made Hoops is big. I love what Made Hoops is doing.
Sure.
It's giving these younger kids a platform to showcase their abilities and what they want to do coming up, and they're the next generation. Right. I'm part of the NBPA, so I have a seat on the top 100 camp for these high school kids to get into the NBPA top 100 camp, which is I'm over the player coaching association. So all the former players and current players who are thinking about going into coaching, I put them through a curriculum at the camp, at the top 100 camp, which I love to do because I did the last 8 years of my NBA career of coaching. So I got to see, I coached Devin Booker, I coached Zion Williams, and like seeing these kids in the NBA that's been part of the NBA camp was huge. Like, you got a relationship with them. So that's the basically of the middle school. And then also the middle school camp can lead into the John Lucas Invitational Camp, which was one of the biggest camps in America when they get into high school. So it's just our family business, and it's me kind of putting my stamp on the game, and that's why it's called Get Right, the JL3 Way, because there's only one way I know how to do, and that's get right.
Got you. Well, Coach, we'll appreciate that. That was JL3 Basketball, right, on March 18th and 19th in Torrance, California. So we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you.
Thank y'all for having me. You have a blessed day.
You too.
Take care. Yeah, Ronnie, as you can tell, Coach JL3 had a lot to say. He's been around the game a lot. He carved out a 10-year career. Most people probably wouldn't think, let's be honest, keep it real. Most people probably wouldn't think he would play 10 years in the NBA, but he told us how he was able to carve that out and what you got to do. What's a couple of things you took away, first from like his career, and then secondly, like what he's going to do with this camp?
Well, just the work that he put in, right? Like, and he talked about being in the league and how the Bulls Rose wanted him because he said he's the only guy that guards me 94 feet in practice. Like, he knew as a role player, my job is to go in practice and make the starters ahead of me better. That's really that's such a mature mindset, and that's something that we always see. One aspect of the game is hard for guys to adjust mentally. Like, you're a guy that's always been playing, big time college basketball player, and now I'm here to potentially just make the guys ahead of me better. Like, that's a real mind shift that, he did a good job and was allowed to play 10 years in the league. When you talk about his camps, I think he has a really good concept. He talked about wanting to make it a combine. Lucas is obviously big on fundamentals, right? Sure. And I think that's something he really wants to bring to the table, and he wants to start it young. which I like. He wants to start young with the middle school kids and just kind of get after it. So I'm excited to see how his camp look. Obviously he'll be on your way, and I know he'll probably try to bring it out to Houston during the summer. But I'm excited to see what he's doing, and I really was impressed by just how he's like, I'm going to play. My job is to make you better, D Rose. Sure. My job, and just to be ready just in case something happens.
Yeah, for young kids out there, especially the younger kids in the middle school ranks, I would definitely suggest you hit a Lucas camp, sooner than later. Like we said, that's March 18th and 19th in Torrance, California. Get right, the JL3 Way camp. It should be a really good camp. And what I got from most of what he said is like he wrote some goals down and was like, I want to play in the NBA and I'm going to play for 10 years. He did that at like age 13 or 14, and that's a specific goal. And he reached it again. He played with some great high school players. He played with Emeka Okafor. We talked a little bit about that, and that was just a great era for Houston basketball. And like we said, that Willow Ridge team they finished number 2 in the Fab 50, and they kind of put that Dallas Lincoln team over the top. That Willow Ridge team really set up that Dallas Lincoln team. And obviously, we talked about Modern Day at the top of the show. Modern Day beat Carmelo Anthony and Oak Hill on them, and that kind of elevated Lincoln to number 1. And they were deserving. Yeah, because Oak Hill was number 1 of that season. They beat LeBron, as we talked about in a recent episode. That was a big game 20 years ago. Wow, it's been 20 years. And then he came back and beat Oak Hill senior year. But yeah, that was a big game, and that happened right around the All-Star Weekend. All-Star Weekend 2002, and everybody was like, "Oh, is LeBron going to hang out at the NBA All-Star game?" It's like, nah, this dude's going to finish the season. He balled, and that was great to see. That was him as a junior, and they lost to Oak Hill, and like I said, Oak Hill lost to Modern Day at the Nike Extravaganza, which is the event I just went to.
Right.
Like I said, with the Centennial and Harvard Westlake and those strong teams. Some years they bring in some big guys, like Jalil Okafor played there, Kevin Love. Not really a big national team this year. It had a little bit more of a regional flair to it. But that's some great stuff there that JL3 kind of talked about. And so shout out to him for coming on and really giving us his time. He really got in there and talked about a lot of things.
He did.
To get more information about what he's doing, his training methods, and follow him on Instagram. It's JL3 Basketball. So, you can get some more information. But I think, Ani, we're about to wrap this one up. That was a good episode. Hopefully we'll get Chelsea back next week, and we'll get our guy Horace too, toward the NCAA tournament. We'll bring in Horace toward the NCAA.
Horace, you need to get back over here, man.
Yeah, no, Horace, we need Horace back. But I think from now, that'll do it for episode 152. Until next time, Ronnie and Ani are logging off.